If you are chasing success and you want to be successful and you're a spiritual entrepreneur, I highly, highly, highly recommend you reading this book and following Dan Koe. Oh, and I forgot to say, I have this little secret ritual that I do literally that has helped me rewire my brain so deep in alignment with Dan's philosophy for more success, and I will share that with you at the end of this video. So stay tuned right until the end in case you want to give that a try yourself to up level your mind and your focus.
Wake up, hit snooze 4 times, stare at your phone, roll out of bed, make coffee, sit in traffic, 8 hours of unfulfilling work, sit in traffic again, argue with your significant other, walk the pet, watch TV, pass out, repeat. Humanity is conditioned to follow a default path in life that is set out by society. The 99% of people that do what they're told, question nothing, and pass down what they know lead to a population that can't think for themselves. This leads to a dull, mechanical, and mindless life.
Exactly this. This video is going to be my review of this book, The Art of Focus by Dan Koe, who is an incredible human, and I am a big fangirl. So this is going to be a fangirl moment of this book, and also a professional intuitive creator myself. So before I jump into who this amazing man is, and how deeply resonant his philosophy and work is with my own personal self, I want you to first check yourself to watch this video, because you might not be an eligible individual for this video if you already didn't resonate with the clip that I just played of Dan speaking in regards to this book. So if you didn't resonate with that final statement that he said of living a
dull, mechanical, and mindless life,
living the way that Dan has portrayed in these initial chapters of his book, The Art of Focus, his words and my own beliefs can trigger those that are not ready to hear the universal truth of their life situations. And so I urge you to think about whether you felt triggered watching that by the initial intro of this video before watching any further. If you agreed or resonated with his statement, then you will absolutely love this video, the book, the author himself, Dan Koe, as much as I do. If not, I wish you well. I would advise you to stop watching this video now and remain comfortable in your comfort zone. Okay, so I'm going to start this video by introducing Dan. You might be thinking, okay, who's this guy, Janie? You might have seen me reading his book on my Instagram or TikTok stories if you follow me there, and oh my God, I have to say I am such a picky individual. Like, when it comes to actually loving someone and finding anyone who truly inspires me from the bottom of my heart, Dan is one of those very few who truly humbles me as a human being, inspires me, and educates me to acknowledge what I already know and to dive deeper into what I don't know or understand yet, and provides such an authentic, genuine vibe. This video is going to be 2 things. Thing number 1 is going to be lots of genuine fangirl moments of the author himself, as his mind and his perspective is something that needs to be recognized so much more deeper than it is, and I absolutely love this man, like seriously, his mind. And on a side note for Dan, if he ever happens to find this video and watch it himself, I love you, your work, your mind so much. You are truly an amazing soul. Thank you so much for following your own curiosity to then create this book for all of us to appreciate and learn from. And thing number 2, of course, is a review from my own perspective, and I'm going to be summarizing his book that came out earlier this year and why you absolutely must buy it and read it, or listen to it on Audible as soon as you can. I will drop the links below if you want to find deeper meaning, your purpose, to reinvent yourself and your life in any way, because this book literally covers all of those aspects that I classify as balance, in terms of the human body being a spiritual one, a physical one, a mental one, and an emotional one. And Dan covers all aspects within his book with a stronger focus on the mental and the spiritual bodies. Again, something that I noticed is there's a lot of guys. I think his audience does have a few like females commenting, but predominantly the most of the videos that have been made about Dan are all from the masculine. And so I thought, oh, let me share a feminine intuitive perspective on this, which can be quite different as well. So again, this is just my humble opinion. Feel free to read the book and to create your own feels and your own opinions about it. I'm here to share mine with love and support to both Dan as well as you souls watching this who would love his material and wisdom. Okay, enough waffle. Let's jump in and focus. So at the beginning of this video, I played part of Dan's own video. He has uploaded onto his YouTube channel summarizing his own book, which is the first place that I recommend you going to have a good listen, as this is what I did before purchasing the book myself. So I would have loved to do an introduction on Dan himself, but I don't want to take away from his book. And so I've actually dropped the links below for a creator who has done a whole video on Dan Coe and his success story. If you want to jump into that, feel free to go check that out after this video. Okay, so the book is segmented into 3 main core parts. Part 1, find meaning. Part 2, reinvent yourself. And part 3, create your ideal future. So I'm going to talk about the top 15 ideas in this video, with the top idea number 1 from the book being the difference between beginners and masters. So in the part 1 of finding meaning, there are 3 different chapters. In chapter 1, Dan touches upon the principles his philosophy lies upon, which serves as the foundation for the lessons for the rest of the book, which is really great for those of us who are new to this part of their journey, and also for those deep along in their journey to understand Dan's perspective and particular words and phrases that he chooses to use. It's almost like a dictionary encyclopedia type of feel to understand the keywords as you move on through the book. And one particular starting paragraph, he says, caught me deeply as he goes over the difference between what a beginner is and a master, whether at life, work, or relationships. This can be applied in all contexts of life, as the entire book can, which is a facet that I actually love the most, because it's not niche down. And that's something that Dan talks about a lot as well in his videos, where it's like, do not niche down and not to niche down. I'll drop some of his video links below as well if you want to go and check them out. After this, I think I've literally binge watched most of Dan's content, as there is super rich gold and high value in there. So the main difference that he states between the beginner and the master is the beginner finding value in methods because they offer certainty, versus a master rarely needing methods given to them because they prioritize high level understanding and experimentation. And I love this because those of you who've been watching my videos, you know, number 1 rule that I always talk about is experimenting. You have to be the experimenter of your own life. And this is something that I believe in, as once being a beginner to now mastering my own craft, I understand that I no longer require somebody else's template or methods because I have my own. And this is where I tie our intuitive voices and listen to our higher selves before anything else. But this can only be done when we work with the ego or the mind and not be a slave to it, which Dan touches on a lot as well. Again, one of the big reasons why I love him so much, and I'm going to stop saying that I love him so much through this video as much as I can. Bear with. Huge fangirl moment. Top idea number 2 is focus, energy, and experience. So chapter 2 within the first part of Find Meaning talks about 3 pillars Dan has split into focus, energy, and experience, which I 100% agree with as being the most important aspects or traits to discover within ourselves to find our purpose and meaning in life. Dan has this hobby that's quite similar to me in the sense of studying successful people and finding the patterns between them. So focus is one of those patterns he found to be true in seeing the previous successes of my life and my current successes. They do all narrow down to focus being the catalyst to propel you forward. The energy part of the book, of course, I will always also resonate with, and he starts off this section with one of my most loved phrases: energy flows where attention goes. I'm going to repeat that. Energy flows where attention goes. And he brings a deeper perspective on the mental energy required for the specific goals we set, or that somebody else has set for us, depending on where you're at in your journey of life. In the experience section, it's really beautifully put together in the way that Dan articulates himself and teaches us that without experience, we cannot challenge our mind and self to the degree to which we think that we can without actually taking the action step first. Nor can we take the ideas or the opinions or advice as law without directly being part of that lived experience. And again, this is something I heavily agree with, as my own wisdom stems from lived experience. Everything I've been able to create has been from lived experience and skill stacking. My soulmate came through to me after living an abusive relationship, the next narcissist, and going through those challenges also led me to create my Nail Your Narcissist Bootcamp and set myself free from that toxicity and style of relationship patterning, which is why I'm now able to teach others through that lived experience. Dan also talks about bringing together the fact that with ample experience, the feedback loop of both focus and energy tighten together, meaning that your results will compound because your mind filters from the information that you interpret as more helpful to meaningful action. So the top idea number 3 is the 4 types of focus. I loved this bit in the book. He ends this chapter with a summary of the human condition and explains that there are 4 types of focus: unconscious narrow focus, unconscious open focus, conscious narrow focus, and conscious open focus. And what each one of these all lead to, which was really, really cool and very helpful if those of you who love to reflect on your own self and behavior, this part could be really beneficial to you to acknowledge where your focus is at throughout the emotional experiences you are going through. I'm purposefully not going to be diving deeper into that here, as this book needs to be given all your attention due to the depth of the nature of it, and it's not for the faint or light-hearted. You have to be willing to go deep. Then I promise you it has the power to transform and change your life if you allow it to. Top idea number 4 is the universe, and in chapter 3 and the final chapter of part 1, Find Meaning, Dan covers the universe, which is probably one of my favorite personal topics, being the fact that I'm a spiritual soul myself, and he breaks down this in the actual word itself, universe. One song. This was so good to read and to connect with on a new perspective, because if you think about verses in songs, like Dan explains, they are never just one sound played at one time. Most of the time it's multifaceted, and it's similar to the universe, with our egos constantly trying to fight that harmony. And this is where that fight or flow comes into play, which I also always talk about. His cyclical cycle explanations are really beautiful, and they're very similar to my own perspectives, which I share in my own recent videos on the feminine cycle and in the masculine and feminine awakenings, which is in this playlist that you can grab. Top idea number 5, dance or battle. So Dan ends the part 1, which is the Find Meaning section, by talking about the fact that we are not trying to be at war with our struggles, but in fact we're trying to be at one with it. And the way we can do this is to sit with the struggle or the problem that you're facing or experiencing and understand why you are fighting it. And once you fight enough with that, which is part of our ego and its job is to protect us at all costs, you are then able to surrender and let go. This is the dance floor, not the battlefield. But again, we make it a battlefield by our choices. And so it's our individual choice that allows us to either fight or flow. And that's just beautifully put, because that's something that I took a while to learn. And now I've reached this place where I literally try and flow the majority of time, and just having that awareness of, am I resisting something? Am I in resistance? Am I fighting something? How can I flow with it and just allow to be led? And that can be really, really peaceful to live that way. So the book then moves to part 2, which is the Reinvent Yourself section, which holds 4 chapters covering the self, the game, the lens, and the formula. So the top idea number 6 is multi-purposes. So in the first chapter of the self, Dan almost upgrades our perception and our awareness of the self as an individual, the self in relation to others, the identity itself as a survival system, and reasons behind why we sometimes feel that pull to go inwards and within ourselves in order to find the truth or a solution to the problem that we are facing. And he also explains that we don't just have one purpose, but many. And again, this is something that I always talk about. The way to find those multiple purposes is through solving the problems that you face one at a time. And as you face each one, you will start to uncover more and the rest of your purpose as a result of that experience, which he mentions earlier in the book as part of those 3 pillars. In the second chapter of the book, of the second part, the game, Dan, being an ex-gamer, resonates deeply with the gaming lifestyle, and he provides deeper insights into how life is just like a video game. He also talks about this in a lot of his YouTube videos, and he provides a huge scope of examples of different styles of games, and the frame being the playing field, and in reality the frame being our own perspective. And again, this is something that I 100% agree with, because I look at life like a game, and I'm always playing with the universe. I'm always playing with my perspective and how I can shift it to help me rather than be in resistance to it. And again, like Dan mentions in the book, that our reality is a direct result of the perspective that we choose to see things from, or in Dan's world, play from. If you simply want, and it's fun because it's like he looks at it from games, and when I'm teaching about content creation, I'm always saying have fun with it. Find your fun, find what lights you up from within. And so if you simply want to learn the rules of the game of life and how to play, this is also deep within the chapters of the book, and you should definitely go buy it if you've stuck out this far into this video, because it will change your life. So top idea 7 is your perspective. In the following chapter of the second part of Reinvent Yourself, called The Lens, Dan goes even further in the last mention of perspective being the frame of your reality to play the game, and how everyone is playing their own games in life on a macro and micro level. And he covers in a lot of depth the consciousness, the mind and mental choices and decisions that we are making every single day that leads us to a fulfilling or unfulfilling lifestyle. The conscious and unconscious mind and the path of mastery, that in summary all starts with a deepening of questioning your reality. Why do you go to the job you hate? Dan's quote from the book here is something I love and resonate with as a big, deep questioner myself. If you say you want to do this work for 5 to 10 years, why does it matter if you don't get paid for the first 6 months? Expanding your mind into all the possibilities that surround us, all at any given moment, is something that he does so well in this book. And he, that's again down to our own choice of, are we going to choose that for ourselves? Are we going to question for ourselves? Top idea number 8 is the anti-vision. So again, in the formula part of the book, Dan goes over the anti-vision, which is something that he explains as great fuel to achieving most of the things in your life, as it forces you to think of the misery that you don't want to experience and start making different choices and changes to start living the reality that you do want. Again, it's slightly counterintuitive, but a favorite piece of his writing here that I loved and thought I wanted to share with you is this: self-discipline is when the desire to become the highest version of yourself outweighs the desire for cheap pleasures. And this is true for me and most people I've studied who are successful at anything. Again, in this chapter, Dan talks about the edge of the known and how most people choose to live through adopting the goals of other people and get trapped in a level of social hierarchy that leads to surface level living. Again, as a heavy ex-people pleaser myself, I agree with that, because I was living the life that I was told to by society, by culture and the world around me, to now doing my own thing, not giving a shit about the norm in society and following my own intuitive callings. Top idea number 9 is curiosity is key. Dan explains that curiosity is the start, and there are 4 paths you can take to pursue your curiosity further. The first path being appreciation for what the curiosity is in itself. The second path is understanding the curiosity and learning all about it. The third being mastery of that very thing that you were once curious about and have now gathered deeper information and evolved your own mind. And so the fourth path being monetizing the very thing that you started off being curious about and ended up learning and understanding and mastering. So now this can be something that you now help others with in exchange for monetary value. Again, as a content creator, this just literally is the definition of the full experience of a content creator. Most successful creators follow this very formula, and Dan has just so accurately picked up on all the patterns of the success and shares the facets of it in his book. And it still amazes me how much depth, insight and wisdom there is inside his brain to even just like getting this script ready for this video and me speaking to the camera is like, oh my god, mind boggling how he manages to read all of his in-depth newsletter videos. Like, I'm a deep person, and even for me it's like amazing. Top idea number 10 is create your ideal future now. So moving into part 3 of the book, titled Create Your Ideal Future, Dan dives into explaining why now is quite literally the best and almost easiest ways to make money, with the fact that we don't need money to start an online business and we don't need a physical location due to the internet. He dives deeper into understanding why the education system is flawed and how it seeks the exact opposite to what creators are doing online. From his book, and again, I can't stop smiling because I agree with all of this, like this is my belief system as well. From his book, The School System Conditions Convergent Thinking, Conformity over Authenticity, Memorization over Process, failure as something to avoid, and authorities as unquestionable. Long work over efficiency, and intelligent dictated by book smarts. Again, this is something that deeply resonates with my soul because I've always been a rebel deep down. I've never fitted into society's norms, and I've always been the odd one out simply for asking why. Almost every opportunity, like I am that why girl. It's like my mum, the amount of times she would say, you ask why too much, and like, why are you asking why about that? And I'm like, that's the way I learn, that's the way I operate. And so I see the education system for what it is. It's literally, like Dan says in the book, it's a stepping stone to get you into debt, work for someone else with a capped income. So it's a stepping stone, yes, because it can support you while you build your business, but it's not the end goal. But everyone around us has made it their end goal, and this is what we want to get out of. Top idea number 11 is, what is a creator? So Dan goes in to explain what a creator is, because many of us who have been conditioned by society will probably think, oh, a creative is anyone that's artsy or creative by design work or in the educational field of creativity. That is incorrect, and I agree with this. Creator within the creator economy, as Dan has put it, is anyone who becomes a fountainhead of value through personal development, and someone who shares that value in public and makes a creative income doing so. Now, this can be done mostly on social media, but it's not, the philosophy of the creator is not limited to just the online space. And as a creator in the online space myself, I have my Intuitive Content Creators Roadmap to Success coming out very soon. You can join the waitlist. The link is in the description box below if you're choosing to become a value creator or are an intuitive soul wanting to flow and take inspired action. Then that roadmap is there to help you. And top idea number 12, the new rich. So Dan goes deep into explaining the new rich and what it means to be rich in this new age of Aquarius, as I like to call it with my astrology roots. And his explanation of the new rich are those that can refine their lifestyle to sustain a schedule filled with stillness, movement, and a lack of mindless chatter in the skull. And this cracked me up because it's like the way he speaks with like a slight, it's like a hint of sarcasm. And for me, it tickles my humor because I love that. When he just simple words like he's using skull instead of mind. And I'm like, that's the way I speak sometimes. So yeah, mindless chat in the skull. Basically, the new rich are those who are taking control of their lifestyle choices, accepting and being aware of life, being a constant cyclical energy of flow and movement and highs and lows, and then being really, really mindful over their own minds and what they're feeding it in order to live the happiest, most fulfilling life. And he goes into more depth on how to create this lifestyle by design, your life's work, what this means to you as an individual, and also the kind of things that he suggests to fill, empty, and use your mind for better every single day. And then the top idea, number 13, is the 4-hour workday. The 4-hour workday is what Dan has designed for himself. It's what I do when I'm not in the building phase of my business, and it's the ultimate balanced, optimal state to be in. Even when you're doing what you love as your work, Dan states 4 hours of focused work is much better than 8 hours of distracted work. And a lot of entrepreneurs or creatives, especially with no roadmap or clue in the beginning, can spend months or years in this distracted phase trying to build a business with not much to show for it at the end of it, because there's so much distraction in the world. Top idea 14 is the one-person business model. So the final chapters of the book are all about creating your one-person business, the skill stack that's needed, the messaging aspects, and the details of what types of offers of work you can produce as a creator, especially for aspiring or beginner creators. Top idea 15, and the final one, is Dan's own personal recommendations. And I wanted to add this in here just so you know, because this was something that I actually questioned while watching Dan's videos on YouTube, and I'm glad he actually put this in the book, because it ends with a couple of resources, inspirational books, authors, and YouTubers that Dan has actually listened to and recommended as a reading list. A backstory to Dan himself and his journey, and the meaning behind the symbol on the front cover of the book. So it actually gives you the meaning of this and why he picked it, which I thought was really nice as well, because I did wonder. Obviously, focus, I was like, it was a bit like the bullseye, but there's a deeper meaning. Oh, obviously it's Dan, so there is going to be deeper meaning behind everything, which I love. So yeah. So again, this book is not for the faint-hearted or the superficial. It's for the deep thinkers, deep divers. I consider myself to be a very deep thinker and diver, and whereas most books I can finish in a few days with strong focus, like this book took me a few weeks to really dive into and to be able to digest everything Dan has written like fully. but I will still be rereading this book time and time again. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I have a little secret to share. Dan Koh is my nighttime rewiring ritual at the moment. He has been for the past 6 months. So every night when I struggle to sleep, I will put his voice on YouTube and I will listen to that, because I know that it's rewiring good stuff into my brain. He's rewiring beliefs that I already believe about myself, and obviously his energy will also seep through. So I'm a huge believer of rewiring the brain, and I play that to myself. So if there's anyone that you feel like, yeah, you're aspiring to become that version, then you can always play that before bed and help it rewire with their beliefs into your headspace. And it fires up new levels of consciousness and thinking, so that you are stepping into those new identities. So that's my little secret, and that's what I've been doing, and my partner gets to do it with me because he's sleeping with me too. So yeah, Dan has been the major thoughts that have been entering my brain before sleeping, and I found that it's actually allowed me to become more focused and aware. Try it yourself. Just pick any video of his or sleep to it, or any creator for that fact, that you aspire to be like, and you can start to take on better beliefs, better thought processes, and work styles for your own mind. I will do a separate video on hypnosis and rewiring the brain and the subconscious mind, because remember, what you feed your mind is top most priority. I do not feed my brain with shit. Even silly scrolling on socials can bring your mind down. Be mindful, not mindless. So I just want to end this video with thank you to Dan Koh for spending long focused hours of study and discipline into writing your newsletters, this incredible book, your courses. He has a 2-hour writer course and other digital products to help creators on their journey. Should you be interested, I've dropped the links for those below. And of course, the book link is also going to be dropped below. So if you are chasing success and you want to be successful and you're a spiritual entrepreneur, I highly, highly, highly recommend you reading this book and following Dan Koh. Lots of love. I will catch you in my next video. Mwah.